We also have breaking news at the governor's desk. The bill reversing a law targeting the release of mugshots in the state of Louisiana has been signed by Governor Landry nearly 1 hour ago. The law bill prevents the release of mugshots of criminal offenders that have not committed a violent crime. The original intention of the law was to prevent offenders from leaving a digital footprint, something that could prevent a person from finding a job or finding housing. Senator Alan Seabaugh, who authored the now-passed bill, claims that the old law created a burden on sheriff's offices. This law reversal will now go into effect on August 1st. You can find more information over on our website.